Our whole job as marketers is growth, awareness growth, audience growth, and business growth. It's what we're here for. And there's never been more channels, more tools, and now we have AI to solve it all. Shouldn't growth really be obvious? Wrong. It's more complicated than ever. With all of these moving pieces, it's clear that true growth doesn't happen by accident. It has to be intentionally designed. And as marketers, we have to shift our thinking and approach it as a true system. It's not one channel or tactic or even one audience anymore. Growth marketing really is about intentional and strategic system that connects deep customer and competitive understanding, bold strategy, bold creative, and smart AI powered execution to really create one continuous cycle. So, today we're talking about how leaders can cut through that noise, really close the gap between the brand that they're building and the results that the business needs, and how to line up that long term vision with the short term results. It's about getting everyone, marketing, sales, and even IT now, rowing on the same direction and believing in the same goals. And that's really what creates growth that's scalable, sustainable, and really allows you to understand what's making an impact. But I'm not here to talk about theory. I brought two incredible clients with me today who are going to share it all. They're going to talk about what helped them lean into this new way of thinking, what strategies they used, what mistakes they made. And we're really going to talk about how this approach of growth marketing drove results. Let's dig in. Today, I have Joanne Battaglia, Senior Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Community Partnerships. My goodness, what a dynamic portfolio. You have strategic marketing leadership, brand communications, and community engagement. And what I appreciate so much about you is what an authentic leader you are and how you balance your corporate and community building at the same time. We've partnered with you. Kelley has partnered with you on many occasions. Today, we're going to talk about Savin, and we're gonna dig into that. So that's very exciting. And we have Jason Moorehead, Vice President of Sales and Swish Maintenance Limited. And you really have a storied history of sales and operations. So right now, your portfolio is also incredibly dynamic and broad: sales, marketing, operations, digital, product. You also have retail locations under your belt. But what I appreciate about you is you're a sales-minded, results-focused business leader. You've worked across so many industries: clothing, CPG, retirement living, real estate, and now at Swish. So you bring such an interesting sales lens to the discussion today. And the pair of you is what I'm most excited about, because growth marketing, there's often this debate and discussion about brand versus performance. And you have both been on both sides of that. And so, what I'm hoping we can do is to have some fun digging into each of your perspectives on this.
Sounds good.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So, every marketing leader I talk to right now is feeling the same pressure. They need to prove impact, they need to prove ROI, and they need to prove it fast, like yesterday. And you need to prove it with AI so it's faster and cheaper. So, but at the same time, nobody wants to really lose sight of the brand that they're building for the long term, and that tension is real. And so I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit about that brand versus performance tension and how each of you have balanced providing short-term ROI with building the long-term value of your brand. Do you want to jump in first, Joanne?
Sure. So first, great to be here. Thanks for having me. It seems like it's going to be a fun afternoon. Yeah, I think that everybody struggles with the short-term ROI and with branding. So it's basically a sales quasi-marketing hat we all wear. My role specifically as disciplines is marketing. With the Savin Financial brand, um, I had to lean into the sales side. So obviously, short-term ROI is important. we require a strategic approach to that. We have to look at both financial performance and brand building initiatives all at the same time. As well, we have to build awareness. We have to build that credibility out there while we're trying to acquire and retain sales. We test and learn all the time. Very important to utilize that test and learn. Now, do they clash? All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But we think that we've found our positioning. We think that we have a good recipe. But again, we're constantly fighting for what are sales like, what's awareness levels at. And so we wear two hats in every meeting for sure.
It's fascinating when you really think about the buyer journey and your role. You have an online only digital financial platform where you have to help people understand what the brand is, build trust, but then bring them all the way through the funnel into conversion. So that tension between awareness and conversion, like I can see how specifically with a brand like this, how difficult that would be. How do you balance that out? You talked about using data. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, remember we're a credit union, we're bricks and mortar. This is a huge, bold move for us to go to an only digital
Yes.
platform. It's not who our basically First Ontario demographic is.
Mhm.
And so we took a big leap of faith here. Now, in order to look at both the brand, we look at awareness scores. We do research, we do surveys, we have engagement with members at all different levels. But I also have to maintain rate. And from a financial perspective, we have to offer competitive rates that are out there, but I can't break the bank back home. So it's a balancing between being competitive, consistent, as well as I'm going to say build awareness. If they don't know about you, they're not going to invest their money with you.
Yeah.
And we're a new brand. We're a smaller platform. We don't have the deeper pockets that some of the other FIs do, but we still think we found our niche, and I think we've been successful in what we've been doing.
So, Jason, how have you balanced proving short-term ROI with building the long-term value of the brand?
Yeah, I think it's very important. You know, I love data, and love to make a lot of decisions based on data. But I think when you look at today's world, I think alignment is so critical between sales and marketing, and really, in my opinion, that alignment has to be focused on one thing, and that's what's important to the customer. So in our business, we've really aligned our methodology from both the sales and marketing perspective with one message. We're there to, with the intent of seeking to resolve our customers' problems.
Mhm.
And then from that methodology is really where we unfold with our tactics. So it's not a marketing tactic plus a separate sales tactic. It's all aligned into one. And so by looking to resolve our customers' problems, we have to connect with them, understand what it is that they're looking for, and then build our strategy around being recognized as that partner that's there to solve your problems. We're not just there to sell them a widget. We're there to solve a problem that's going to make them and their facility perform better.
What I appreciate about working with both of you is that, Joanne, you hinted at this, you launched an online financial platform, which was very different than what your traditional customers were looking for. And Jason, we recently launched a campaign with you that was very different than your traditional go-to-market strategy. So both of you are leaders who are prepared to take risks and do something different that the organization hasn't seen before. We know intrinsically that fear of failure or always taking safe ways leads to unforgettable campaigns, unforgettable efforts, marketing efforts. So, what was the moment that you knew that this was the right thing to do and that you were ready to trust, the process and lean in and do this? Jason, why don't you take this one?
For sure. I definitely think that taking the safe approach typically results in this world where it's a sea of sameness.
Yeah.
And you typically look at certain industries, and all of the competitors tend to advertise in the same way. They tend to build their brand around the same thing. And I've seen it in other industries and have taken a bold approach, and it worked. And so coming into this industry and observing the market, what we found was our competitors and ourselves were very focused on the products that we sell, the locations that we have, how big of a company we are. And what was missing was that critical element of what's important to the customer. The customer doesn't care about what products we sell or the number of locations. What they care about is, as a partner, how can you make sure that you're resolving those challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis? Yes, having the right products in the right place is important, but understanding what is important to that customer is really how you make a difference, and really how you create a different messaging that stands out amongst your competitors.
What I love about what you just said was I could actually see the process that we went through while you were talking. You know, we looked at deep customer research to understand that. We looked at competitive space. We looked at what the data was telling us from the existing purchase path, tools, and tech. We built a strategy, and then we went into performance. And I think that really talks about the fact that growth isn't accidental. Like, we often see things in market and we're like, oh, that's cool, but you don't actually think about the fact that it's a multi-step process, and there's so much that goes in behind the scenes to knowing that that's the right process. And, you know, Joanne, I think I'm guessing that that's where you're going to take us, because it wasn't you just wake up one day and decide you're going to launch this new brand, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And Jason, some great points there. I mean, there's a team behind me of a lot smarter people than I am, that's for sure, who developed the idea of Save and Financial. And basically, it's the platform that we needed in order to stay relevant. And so with that, we had some ideas. We approached our partners here at Kelley, and basically they have helped us from conception through, including a very fun exercise in naming the platform and developing the personality, which the personality was big and bold, different from the branding and the marketing we did with First Ontario Credit Union. And so it allows us to be a little bit bold. Now, we still maintain value proposition that was developed, competitive, consistent rates. Not a lot of digital platforms do that. We didn't want to do a bait and switch. We didn't want to do specials in and out of market. We wanted to stay true to a value proposition like that. So it was bold for us to go into this market. It was bold for us to test this new. It was bold of us to work with our IT department, operations, and other departments in developing the platforms, understanding customer sensitivity or member sensitivity, putting ourselves out there, I think, as a differentiator, as well as adding the community perspective as to giving back. But the other big bold thing we did was to go national. And so we heard from our members that you're a provincial, you're only in Ontario. And it's like, well, maybe there's an opportunity to test. And we did test, and we tested through some global mail ideas that were presented to us from Kelley, as well as utilizing the partnership with our CFL partners, the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And so we were able to amplify the brand more. And with that, from that bold move, we saw more. So in marketing, you can't always play it safe. In order to be noticed, you have to be big and bold.
I love that you said big and bold, because my next question is really about, when you think about big and bold, how did you bring people along with that vision, Joanne? Because you mentioned it, you know, operations, tech, IT, research, you know, trusting that this was a something that you really wanted to commit to. This was a big process for you. So as a leader who feels comfortable with bold thinking, how would you encourage other leaders who want to be more bold in their thinking?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's important to continue to have cross-functional teams. So we have a teams approach at First Ontario. And really, it's really to challenge yourself, make them part of the process. So we approach every project in a team's approach, or every enhancement to the brand as a team's approach. There is always IT involved, operations, customer service, marketing, digital marketing. It's all part of the group, cross-functional group we set up. That's how we've seen success in everybody has a say, everybody sits around the table, everybody challenges, everybody has a voice. So I think it's important to garner ideas, look to others, use research, use intel, but really to approach these types of ideas in a cross-functional team approach is where we've seen success.
And Jason, if you think about your industry, it's traditionally approached very much as a product industry. And since your time there, you've really been using some of your experience in other industries around solution selling, solution-oriented work, solution mindset. What advice would you give to other leaders who want to encourage that sort of, shift in an organization to go from thinking about products to solutions?
I think it's making sure that you have everybody's alignment on what the internal problems are and how do you create a healthy business. And from a perspective of our industry, we're in the distribution industry. We carry lots of different products, lots of different categories, and it's very easy to get into a mix where you're getting one off or one category here, but maybe not some other areas. And so by approaching the customer in a way of partnership and solutions, what you're allowing yourself internally to do is add more categories to that customer that you're selling them, increase that stickiness that you have with your customers, and therefore in the end you're reducing your churn rate. So you're not as frequently chasing the one-off sale. You're chasing a partnership that's going to have multiple products, multiple things together. It's beneficial for the customer, but internally it's an alignment towards the same common goal. How do you create a healthier business for yourself by taking a bolder approach, partnering with your customer in a different way that's important to them, and then you both benefit in the end.
So one of the things I mentioned earlier was really about this complicated world we live in. We talk about, okay, the marketing purists want to talk about the funnel, right? We're going to move people through the funnel. But then now we're in this world where we talk a lot about omni-channel. Oh my goodness, people are omni-channel. They're on TikTok, and then they're here and they're using generative AI for search. And, they're using so many channels and tactics that it can be really difficult to understand what your buyer's even doing, what their journey's even doing. And I want to tease something you said, Joanne. You said, when we were looking to launch Savin, we used our partnership with the CFL. We used initiative with a media publication. We looked at data. That sort of overarching leadership to understand that growth isn't about a single channel or tactic, but it actually really has to be looked at as a system. How did you get there? How did you create that system where people felt comfortable realizing that you can't have growth just by experimenting on TikTok, that it actually has to be this connected system?
Yeah, so interesting question. I think everybody struggles with it. Digital marketing is a two-edged sword, I'm going to say right now.
Yeah.
It's great from an efficiency standpoint. You can reach more. You can reduce costs, marketing costs more, but you got to be out there on every channel and talk in every different way. And there's different demographics that absorb through each channel differently. So how to speak to that demographic. In our area, we have a Helen Horizon and a Mark Millennial. They each are on channels of social media and what have you, but they need to be spoken to differently. So it's really understanding all the different tools available to us, having consistent messaging. And here's where we have to, I'm going to say we have to provide or monitor is the member experience. So we can come in at all different channels, consistent messaging. When we bring them through the funnel, we have to ensure that member or the customer experience is consistent. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It's things that we have to all do better at, because consumers aren't only comparing us to FI channels or institutions. They are looking at every service provider that they use today. They're putting up us against that service channel and comparison on delivery, efficiency, communication, what have you. So it does, I mean, it does, it's, as a marketer, digital marketer, it is a great tool to have. But it's, I'm going to say, providing or creating a need for more eyes, a need for more analytics, and a need to respond quicker in the marketplace.
And this idea of insights is a really fascinating one. And Jason, you talked a lot about, I love data, but we're all drowning in data. It's really understanding how to convert that data into insights. So let's talk about insights for a second. How do we use insights to get to the right problems? That's really about moving past traditional dashboards and data points, but really listening to customers, understanding market shifts and trends. You both have talked about the fact that your buyers want different things, your customers want different things from you. They're using channels and tactics differently. So let's talk a little bit about an example when an insight changed the way you approached growth. So Jason, one interesting insight that you and I have talked about a lot with your organization is that people were purchasing certain products and weren't aware of the full suite of products, which is really why you went to this solution selling methodology, and this packaging of thinking about products as solutions. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we were really when I joined the organization, I found our sales structure and our methodology was very reactive. We chased opportunities, we looked for opportunities, and then we kind of never looked back. And when you took the time to look at the data and you looked at what was there was such a large opportunity for us to improve that overall health of the business. And what I mean by that is we had a lot of customers that bought a few categories from us, but not the full breadth of products that we offer, or even the majority of the products that or categories that we offered. What we found was that churn was also a challenge, because the sales team was off to the next opportunity, leaving behind what they had done. And then the customer, didn't get any word from Swish or stopped hearing from us. So they've moved on. And so, the positive out of that data search was in connecting with those customers who had left us. The reason they left us is they didn't hear from Swish. So that was a really, good thing. We didn't do anything wrong except that follow-up. So what we did was we looked at it in a different light, and I use a very simple analogy. And if you think of a bucket that has water in it, and that water is your revenue level or your sales. And there's a hole in the bottom of the bucket. There's always going to be churn in a business, and that's what the hole in the bottom of the bucket is. But at the top, there's a faucet with water, and it's adding to the bucket. So that's your new business. And so if your new business level gets just a little bit above the level that's going out the bottom of the bucket, you grow. So you think artificially that your business is healthy. We're growing percentage year over year. But imagine the impact to your business if you could shrink the hole in the bottom of the bucket by partnering broader with your customers. So that's where we really took the task of challenging our sales team to go after our existing customer base. How do we become a bigger partner of theirs? How do we add categories? So we actually started with a sales structure change to make sure that we had focus both on our market serving and our market making teams. And then we really aligned our overall methodology to serving that customer and becoming that integrated partner with them. So having multiple categories with them improves our stickiness. We recognize the problems that the customers are facing, and our job is to resolve those problems. How do we get in front of that customer and make sure that their facility is running efficiently, they're performing well in their jobs? They'll warrant us with the business by accepting the fact that we're a true partner.
So, both of you as business leaders wear many, many hats, and we continue to hear this thread as we're talking sales, marketing, operations, tech. And one thing that I see again and again, and even more, this is so much more dramatic when I first started my career in marketing, is how important strategy is when everyone works together. And I can see even in the way you're talking, you often are referencing all of these different departments just in the conversation. So, is this a new, are you also seeing this shift, or is this something that you're intentionally doing and you're intentionally bringing in? You know, when you started your career in marketing, did you see this alignment, this need for alignment the same way? Or have you realized how important it is to foster that alignment? Joanne, do you want to tell us how you've wrestled that down?
Well, I think, and probably we are all seeing an evolution. So really, it's an evolution of um, bringing the right people around the table and ensuring that we have a holistic approach to any type of marketing or sales opportunity. Um, we have a lot of dependencies. So for Saving Financial, we are dependent on our IT folks. We are dependent on our customer service folks. We are dependent on our customer customer teams. We are dependent on our partners. And so there's a lot of dependencies that contribute to this success or to the not success or failure of an idea or of a strategy. But I think in my area, we've developed roadmaps. So roadmaps help us align to strategy of the organization, help us align to all those great number requirements and data points and things like that. But a roadmap is only so good. It has to evolve as well too. And so it's okay to veer off the roadmap a little bit in order to stay relevant, in order to stay competitive. But I need all the other folks around the table to help with that, the steering of the bus, I'm going to say. And so I think it is an evolution and it will continue to evolve as you start to utilize AI into our solutions, as you scale, as you start to add more product, service, things like that. So continued evolution of team building. That's the only way we're going to be successful.
Jason, I've noticed that real growth really only happens when everyone's rowing in the same direction. We've worked together many times over many, many years in different organizations. And one of the things I see you consistently doing is aligning sales, marketing, C-suite. In your experience, how have you been able to get these teams aligned, and what is the part that's made the difference?
I think it's really around building that strategic vision and then holding the team accountable for the overall results. And in some of the organizations I've worked with in the past, where it's been kind of different silos, people celebrate things that make their silo look good, but it really doesn't have any impact on another silo or actually the results of the company. And I think by aligning the teams together, making sure that you're rowing in the same direction or going for the same common goal, I think it becomes a lot more critical for holding each other accountable, making sure that you've got set plans in place, and you're not just focused on checking boxes. You're focused on moving the strategy forward, making small wins, and really in it for the long game. And going back to your first question about the short-term goals versus the long-term, you really want to get away from the short-term perceived wins of this campaign generated X number of leads. Well, in the end, what you want to understand is how many of those leads were qualified, how many of those leads converted, and did we achieve the ultimate goal of what we're trying to do. And I think that's the critical part. In today's world, technology is great, but what it's allowed is for a lot more noise in the marketplace. So it allows you to get in front of your customer, but as the customer, we're seeing so much all the time, all day long. So the really important metric is, how do you create yourself in a different light to make sure that when yours gets in front of that customer, it's something that they stop, they recognize, they pay attention to, and that you don't get lost in that sea of sameness.
I always think about how I should have done marketing back in the Mad Men days where they just launched a print campaign and then they sat in their offices and had cocktails and just waited until the next print campaign came. Like, I think that would have been a really interesting time to be in marketing because now we're in this time where you have to connect all these disparate parts. You have to get all these different groups together. You have to create a campaign that's going to be dynamic and reach all these KPIs. And so the execution side of work is not the end. It's actually just the beginning because then you start to get feedback and it starts to teach you something. And then you've got to take this test and learn into a new campaign and you need to, take that data and try to find some new ideas with it. So how do you approach testing and learning not as as a real opportunity to learn and not as an exhaustive treadmill, Joanne?
Yeah, good question. So a couple of things to unpack there. So test and learn is important, obviously, for any marketer. And we do a lot of it. We learn from test and learns whether they are successful or whether they are not successful. And so what we do is we basically develop strategy, develop targets or objectives. We execute based on the test and learn campaign or requirement, and then we kind of capture all the data, analyze, and readjust or reposition as needed. But the test and learns are important because it gives us valuable lessons as from learnings. And so Savin Financial is a great example of continuous test and learns, whether that's rate, whether that's positioning of ads, whether that's going national, whether that's launching different products. We have to continue to evolve as a digital platform in order to compete with the members' needs or clients, customers' needs out there. And so test and learns is the only approach. And actually, we find them fascinating. We enjoy them, but there is a lot of movement because now, instead of waiting for the analytics to come back from those paper or traditional marketing initiatives, we get real-time information. And so we have to adjust on the fly or very quickly. And so there is good with that, but there is also an abundance of work with that, continuing to watch and monitor results. So
and have the right team in place to be
yeah.
able to take that data and turn it into something.
Yeah, in order to interpret it and
Yeah.
then say, okay, what's our next step? Where do we go from here? Very quickly. And so you don't have the time to breathe, sit around, have a cocktail, and just cruise through all the paper that we used to do. And so now it's quick and fast, half-hour meeting with our partner. Okay, where are we going now? Okay, let's try that. And that's continuous.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that as the humanology flywheel. Like, what's the human insight? What's the data? How do we, develop that insight into something we can action? Let's use that to build the strategy. Okay, then let's execute that. What's the data? What's the insight? What's the strategy?
Exactly.
And you just have to keep going around and around, but that's the power of it. And that's really when we talk about a growth system is marrying that idea of like, we're ready to lean into this idea of human insight technology performance flywheel, and we're ready to step into test and learn. And that's where we know the growth will happen because we have to be open to moving where the insights are showing us that we need to move.
Honestly, it's exciting. It is exciting. Yeah.
Jason, when you think about test and learn, you've got a lot of different ways that you interact with your customers. You've got campaigns, you've got digital, you've got retail, you've got face-to-face selling. Have you leaned into a test and learn strategy?
Yeah, I definitely look at it more as continuous improvement versus test and learn. I mean, we've got so many things moving. You mentioned the flywheel, and really, our goal is to speed that flywheel up as much as possible and get that positive momentum across the organization. So kind of putting a lot of our conversation together, having full alignment cross-functionally, having, accountability towards things. What we find more than ever is adding something and being quick to decide if that's a go forward or not. So definitely evaluating, the short term, did it add some momentum there? And if it did, it usually creates even more opportunities, right? So you have to be very quick and be able to pivot as much as possible to capture what's adding the most momentum to the business and keep adding fuel to that. So, looking for different ways to change your business. So, whether it's through the addition of technology, and we've certainly got on board with that. How does our technology support our sales team? How does our technology, provide a better outcome for us versus looking at things that weigh us back or slow down the flywheel? We don't need technology that requires all kinds of data entry. What we need is technology that's going to help direct our team on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we're serving our customer, we're making sure they have the right products at the right time, and really making sure we don't miss out on any opportunities.
One of the most exciting reasons I brought you both here today is because growth marketing really depends on this sales, marketing, performance brand dichotomy. And Joanne, as a storied brand builder, and Jason as a, leading sales expert, how have you absorbed, adapted to the fact that your role has had to change and you've each had to lean into this other side of the story? So Jason, you've been building brands and really exploring how to develop the brand. How uncomfortable was that for you?
It definitely, yeah. I mean, building a brand is definitely not the most comfortable, but I think it's because my drive is really towards growth. My drive is towards how does this work help us grow our revenue stream? How does it help us serve our customers better? So it is a little more on the soft side of building awareness and building things that's a bit slower. But at the same point, recognizing the importance of that, right? Recognizing that aligning that messaging is so important in any business, where if you're building this brand message that is painting the picture of an organization, and then the actual experience that the customer gets is totally different. Off the top of my head, there was an article I was reading about a music festival, and it was being held in the Bahamas back in 2017. And what they were promoting from a brand perspective was this luxurious experience and great food and great entertainment. And what the actual experience was living in tents and eating, grilled cheese sandwiches was kind of the environment that they had. So it was such a disconnect, right? So, throughout my career, I've always been about alignment, aligning teams together, making sure we're all, have the same goals in mind, that we're focused on the results of the business. And so for me, getting, more and more experience on the brand side and learning how to use that brand awareness campaign to drive growth in the organization, that's really been the key, and how to align them all together.
So we've successfully converted your sales mind into a brand mindset. Can we get this on camera?
Does that mean I've gone to the dark side?
Welcome.
Yeah.
Joanne, you have spent a lot of your career building brands, building community partnerships, building in-person experiences. And then you switched to this Save-In project where it was all online and all about performance. Tell me a little bit about how uncomfortable or how fun or challenging that was.
Yeah. So yeah, anytime you go outside your comfort zone, is it a little scary? But I think for myself, I loved the challenge. I understood the brand and the story because we were very much involved in developing it, and I wanted to take it to the next stage. So I think a lot of learnings, but I'm really enjoying the sales side of it. I think in our organization, one of my mentors have always said to me, everybody's a salesperson in the organization, because you act as an ambassador for your organization. And so, and there's a little competitiveness with me. And so with that, I think that took the challenge on. I've learned a lot. I have reached out to a lot of support mechanisms within the organization to help with it. But I think we found a good balance. And as we're continuing to build brand, we are also seeing an influx or increase in sales performance. So it's exciting to be, I'm going to say, in the infancy of the development of the brand and the sales strategy.
Joanne, you raised a really good point there about everybody being in sales, and I think that's something that we've really been falling behind or pitching to our team as well, and I guess in a way convincing them. We have so many in our organization, so many touch points with our customers. So going back to this brand that we're developing and this kind of awareness of who we are and what we're trying to resolve. Then we have our delivery drivers, we have our service technicians, we have our customer care team that are all interacting with our customers, and having them recognize that the behaviors or the actions that they're taking impact the success of the business. That to us was really critical in getting the team aligned and showing that improvement to make sure that they recognize how important everything that they do every day is.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's what I've heard from you. If you want to start being more strategic about growth, you need to be intentional about understanding your audience. You need to understand your metrics and what matters, and you need to pick a focus. So it's really about understanding the strategy and getting alignment with your team. The second thing I heard was really about avoiding random acts of marketing. So this is really about creating a growth plan and ensuring that everyone understands the who, the what, the how, and keeping everyone aligned on the same goals. And really, that when marketing is changing so fast, you have to go back to the fundamentals. And that's about a clear brand, a clear story, developing a funnel, and then testing channels as they serve your strategy. We have spent a lot of time talking to Jason Moorehead and Joanne Battaglia about their experiences with growth marketing. And we're going to switch it up. So I've been the one asking all the questions. Now we're going to flip the table. And I asked you to bring a few of the questions that you hear most from your peers or the ones you've wrestled with yourselves. So let's do a quick rapid fire round. You ask, I answer, no pressure.
Excellent. Here we go. Okay, question one.
All right.
Where do we start if we want to be more strategic about growth?
All right. Here's my answer. We start by auditing your audience, really understanding what your customers want, really looking at your competitors and the space that you exist in, and then look at the tools and tech you have. What are the metrics? What is the data showing you? Let's pick one focus. Let's look at insights over a bunch of activity, and let's start with strategy.
Great answer. Shannon, how do we avoid random acts of marketing?
Random acts of marketing. Okay. We're going to do a growth plan, not a campaign calendar. We're going to focus on the who, the what, and the how. We're going to keep everyone aligned on the same goals and rowing in the same direction.
Good answer. Okay, let's keep this going. We have data, but no insights. What do we do?
Well, I find that when we have data but no insights, it's that we're not really sure about the KPIs that matter. So let's ask why, not what. Data only matters when it changes what we do next.
Shannon, we hear this all the time. Marketing is changing fast. How do we adapt without chasing trends?
Oh, I hear this all the time too. People get pressure from other people in their organization because they see their competitors doing something different, or a new channel comes out, or a new tactic. And I would say it's about going back to the fundamentals. What's your story? Let's develop a consistent funnel and only test new channels if they serve your strategy.
Shannon, I'm in B2B. Does my approach to growth marketing change?
It doesn't change the fact that you still need audience insights, competitive understanding, strategy, and bold thinking, and really incorporate that into your execution. You then need to think about longer sales cycles and building deeper trust. But no, growth marketing is the same recipe.
Last one. What's the one shift that makes the biggest difference?
Stop separating brand and performance. When strategy, creative, and media share the same goals, growth becomes repeatable. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time, and let's keep doing great things together.
No,
Thank you
great.
for
Thanks
having
for
us.
having us. Yeah.